Prize attached to the talkbacks. Good morning, and what's up?
Yes, good morning. It is a Talker Tuesday, which is presented by Northern Fire Grilling and Barbecue Supply, northernfirebbq.com. And throughout the Talker Tuesday, your talkbacks, free iHeartRadio app, hit that microphone, give us up to your best 30 seconds. You're going to, the tastiest talkback of 9 to noon today will get a $25 gift card to Northern Fire Grilling and Barbecue Supply. So, free agency, big opinions, QB talkers appeared, just evergreen, but a new day and a chance to sign some new members of the Minnesota Vikings. Talkbacks. Hand them over.
So much happened in NFL free agency yesterday. It does not behoove us to analyze all of it. It does not behoove us to analyze all of it because there was so much.
Yeah.
Like Kyrus Tonga to the Chiefs. Or the ever-beatable Cordale Flott getting fat stacks of cash, or Alec Pierce getting paid like he's Jerry Rice, or even Malik Willis to Miami, where he's reunited with Jeff Hafley, who was with him last year in Green Bay. The Bens, Gessling and Lieber, are here to help today. So we'll have some of that conversation to save some of that stuff for them. Gessling, the scribe, at 10 o'clock. By the way, Nordo's Guy, the law firm of John Franklin and Myers, went to Tennessee to play with Jeffrey Simmons on a 3-63, and that's exorbitant. Like many other deals, because the bad teams have saved up their chips, hoping to turn the frown upside down. But do those bad teams end up with a ton of cap space in a bad year to be flush with that much walking around money? Only time will tell, Davey. We can't possibly hit everything here. And right now, with the here and now, because as of like 5:30 last night, when I started crafting this bad boy, there had been 132 moves and signings, and kickers and corners, and holy cow, with the head spinning Monday. It was awesome, quite honestly, with names, some familiar names going here, there, and everywhere. And it's continuing to spin today. By the way, props to Seattle, wide receiver and kick returner, Rashid Shaheed.
Yeah.
The champs, how about this? The champs nabbed him at the deadline. He returned a kick for a touchdown in the playoffs against the Niners and parlayed it into a 3-year, $51 million deal. He got more than Jalen Naylor did in Las Vegas, I think, despite catching just 18 passes in 12 games with Seattle. But he showed them enough to give him a deal of a lifetime. So props to Shaheed. Got 3 and 51 from Seattle.
What a 4 or 5 month period for him, by the way. Going from determining will it be Tyler Shuck or Spencer Rattler throwing me the ball, to finding his way to Seattle, to making memories, establishing, wow, he's one of the better kick returners, among the best maybe in the NFL, wins a ring, and gets $50 million. Good for Mr. Shaheed.
3 and 51 when his last deal with the Saints was for $5 million. It pays to be fast. Congratulations, Rashid Shaheed. All righty, let's start like this. The Wild hosts Utah tonight, and all Wild games are sweet. And we have a Vox in the Box Thursday with Heinze, Billy G, and Staylock confirmed. Also, our beloved Hal is at the Lake Show Baby tonight in search of a correction off that sucker punch that took place Saturday at Target Center. Finchy is with 9 to noon tomorrow from Los Angeles around 9:30. Free agency right now around here goes a little something like this. The Minnesota Vikings have secured the services of linebacker Eric Wilson into the equation. They'll keep Ivan Pace Jr. Jalen Redmond is back in the fray. And they will sign former Steelers corner James Pierre to a 2-year inexpensive deal. Pierre was with Flores in Pittsburgh, so that has some sneaky to it. They also tendered main man Xavier Scott, and Bo Richter got the exclusive rights tender. Jalen Naylor's a Raider. $3 and $35 million for all that speed. And we thank Naylor for his kindness and willingness to acquiesce with the drive-bys in the locker room after wins. our punter in an absolute pari-mutuel puzzler. Our punter got a 4-year deal from New Orleans and $8 million guaranteed.
He ain't heavy. He's a punter.
And on to Bourbon Street he goes. Way to go for Ryan Wright. Way to go, New Orleans. Maybe the only team in the history of Walter Camp's invention to identify a punter first day of free agency and make him an offer he can't refuse. I love Ryan. I'm happy for Ryan. Didn't see that one coming, but they got a good one with our main man, the plus-size punter.
He ain't heavy. He's a punter. You know, PA, initially I was kind of worried until I saw the money. I'm like, did he leave because we lovingly refer to him as the plus-size punter?
Either that or Brzezinski squeezed him like he did Bursich. One of the two.
$8 million guaranteed for Ryan Wright.
Yeah.
So best of luck down in the bayou, my friend.
All righty, so Ryan Wright there. Our Vikes need a holder for the Alabama kid, though.
Sneaky talker.
We need a holder for the Alabama kid, though, because he might be the best kicker in the National Football League.
Off-season dilemma.
And that's with no due respect to the Dallas guy who went to the Pro Bowl, and Reichert outkicked him in a nationally televised game, and everybody saw it. We need a holder, though.
We do.
And finally, Sam Darnold gets to party with the Lombardi, and we received a third-round compensatory pick for the loss, which is numero 97 in the upcoming draft. Pick number 97. And Brzezinski, beloved Briz, now has a couple of thirds with which to work. And the Minnesota Vikings have 4 picks in the top 97 and kind of need to tag them all.
Faith and goal.
Kind of need to tag them all. Talker Tuesday, talkbacks tied to Northern Fire. What are some talkback-related suggestions?
Well, who are we looking at today? You know, for instance, you mentioned John Franklin Myers going to the Titans. Well, what does that mean in relation to who's going to be available on the D-line today for the Minnesota Vikings and really any team that is out there looking for somebody's services? A couple of guys I'm interested in, for instance, talkbacks. Hey, I'm Eric from Chaska, and getting to know his work over a decade-long career with the young cats we have on the defensive interior, I'm looking at DJ Reader, and here's why. Hey, it's Eric from Chaska. Really intrigued by a guy that played next to Vita Vea and Kalijah Cansey for 4 years. His name's Logan Hall, and he will be leaving the Bucs and will be open for business. I wonder what Logan Hall looks like against the run. A little bit and a ton of starts, by the way, in the last 3 seasons for Mr. Hall. So, Talkback Machine, that's one of them. Talkback Machine, how about this? Do the Minnesota Vikings take a peek at Elgton Jenkins, PA? Elgton Jenkins released from the Packers.
Yeah, we got to figure out what that leg bit was last year. Weeks 11 to 18, he didn't play.
Yes, sir.
We've been Elgton Jenkins fans in the Love Covenant for quite some time. It was generally those in the fan base with whom I deal who were kind of running him down a little bit. Got to figure out what exactly went into that leg injury last year, because Elgton Jenkins is on the market.
Indeed. Now, as we watch some of those deals unfold, specifically, you know, whether it's Devin Lloyd and Jalen Phillips to the Panthers yesterday for fat cash, you saw Reed Blankenship signing a $25 million deal with the Eagles. You saw what the Raiders did really across the board. How about Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean, Linderbaum's contract, Kwity Paye, Eric Stokes getting $30 million. The Raiders spent a ton of cash yesterday.
Where'd Quay Walker go?
Oh, that's just Raiders.
Quay Walker went to the Raiders?
Yeah, here you go. It's Tyler Linderbaum, 3-81. And it was a nice breakdown on this contract, by the way. Tyler Linderbaum's going to make all 81 of those millions of dollars. Unbelievable deal for him.
I think the Raiders guaranteed $234 million in deals yesterday.
And I don't have all the other guarantees, but Quay Walker's getting $340.5. Nakobe Dean, $336. Naylor, our guy, $335. Kwity Paye, $348. Eric Stokes, $330 with 20 of it guaranteed. I remember that.
Wow.
And then Malcolm Kuntz. 1 year, $11 million. They also traded for former Bills corner Taron Johnson. So that was a busy day for the Raiders yesterday. But that's where, moving forward, again, talkbacks, elite football minds with big ideas coming here. Whether it was John Franklin Myers, Tim Settle, Kairos Tonga, PA mentioned that. He goes to the Chiefs on a deal. Never heard of Roy Lopez, but he got a deal. Neville Gallimore, I had heard of him. He's to the Bears. John Ridgway, etc. I'm focused on that D-line because we're going to get to a point, PA, here, whether it's day 2, day 3, and beyond. A lot of the names are no longer in the mix. Now, Trey Hendrickson, that's still a name out there, PA, but might be a little expensive for the purple and gold. We shall see. But in the end, names and people that you're excited about potentially still being available, or maybe the tastiest talkback is simply just a position that you need to see handled today. You're sitting there, you're wetting your palate, and you're ready, and you're like, huh? James Pierre? Who's that? Oh, okay, new DB coach. Gerald Alexander knows him. Hey, Flores knows him, but I need more. How about the 50-some safeties that are out there on the market right now? Interior D-line, as we mentioned. Is there another name outside of Elgton Jenkins, the Cade Mays cat from the Panthers? Myriad options for you via the talkback machine to jump into this, as it was a busy day in total for free agency, but kind of a quiet one for our favorite team.
What do the 9 to noon devotees have up their sleeves for a Northern Fire Talkback prize? We'll play them back during the course of the radio show today. Meanwhile, Minnesota Vikings acting general manager Rob Brzezinski is like,
"Excuse me while I whip this out."
Just sitting back, circling the wagons. We got them exactly where we want them. This is 9 to noon, courtesy of TimberTech and TimberTech.com. What's on deck 9 to noon? Set list-wise includes the Benz, Gessling, and Lieber, the Scribe at 10, the sideline analyst at 11 o'clock. Lions Vox Dan Miller joins about 20 minutes from now for some NFC North intel and much more. And when we return, 2026 adversarial intel. The Minnesota Vikings, let's just put it this way. What do Green Bay, Detroit, Chicago, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Atlanta, Carolina, New England, Buffalo, the Jets, Miami, Indianapolis, the Niners, and Commanders all have in common? They're on our schedule, and some of them added bountifully yesterday. That's next. Nordo produces, and I'm Paul Allen. This is FM 100.3. KFAN, your home for free agent frenzy and the Minnesota Vikings.
Brandon from Roseville. Someone that I'd really like to see added to the roster, a little Romeo Dobbs from Green Bay would be pretty sweet. I think he'd be a good replacement for Jalen Naylor. I think he's more reliable as a route runner, and he's very good in traffic, and he still has that speed to take the top off the defense. He's not small as a 6'2", 200-pound receiver. I think it'd be really sweet to get him and give Green Bay another slap in the face.
I like the talkback, and you nailed it. Dobbs is not as fast as Naylor, every bit as good a route runner, if not better. He also can return punts, and we haven't had a punt return touchdown here since
2016 against the Houston Texans at U.S. Bank Stadium.
There you go.
Marcus Sherrills.
Yeah, that's why I paused. I knew you'd jump all over it because it was so vivid when he returned that punt first year at U.S. Bank Stadium. Then I think the next punt return that took place in that building was by a former Viking who played for the Rams, and it was on a Tuesday, or was it it's a short week for the Rams the year they won the championship.
Short week game, yeah.
Yeah, what happened? Who was it and what happened?
I believe that was Brandon Powell who got loose in a, maybe let's call it a 27-20 loss. And we were so frustrated and bitten by Powell and we added him to the mix, PA. We added him to the mix thinking he could relive that glory. But still, the last punt return, Marcus Sherrills, 2016, a season that started 5-0 into the bye week, weird game at Philly. Maybe there was like a Wedgwood, or I forget what his name was, kick return for the Birds against us. Sendejo with a pick, tweaks his ankle, couldn't get into the end zone. Carson Wentz beats us like 21-13, something like that. Then people started getting hurt. Jake Long, I think the Achilles at FedEx Field. And a 5-0 team became like 6-5. Blair Walsh career dependent upon him making or missing an extra point against Washington. All sorts of weird things. Eric Swoop completely cooking Chad Greenway for a 30-yard touchdown. And Adrian Peterson coming back against those Colts in a late season game, fumbling. And I think that's the last time we saw him wearing purple and gold.
Brandon Powell, though, snapped to Barry. Brandon Powell back into return punts, runs up on it, and makes a Viking miss at the 40. Now he's to the 50 far side. He's to the 40. Brandon Powell is gone! 61-yard punt return touchdown for the LA Rams. And it's Brandon Powell with the first punt return touchdown of his career. And like that, the positivity has been taken out of the building for Vikings fans. It's 19-10, LA Rams. From the same day, December 26th, year of our Lord, 2021. Anybody want Cuzbuzz? 3rd and goal from the 8. Cousins, shotgun, pumps, end zone, and it is batted into the air and intercepted by the LA Rams in the end zone. And it is picked off by Traven Howard, a second-year linebacker from TCU. JJ, the intended target, the ball went bounding in the air, and the Rams have turned over the Minnesota Vikings in the shadow of the goal stripe, and with a 7-0 lead. KO on the sideline wearing blue and gold, about ready to win a Super Bowl. Pretty good day for Adam Thielen, too. Rams rush 4. Kirk looks right, passes right, caught Thielen at the 6, and he's taken down at the 5-yard line. Taylor Rapp with a wonderful piece of open field tackling on Adam, who could not shake on him. And now Adam lay prone, face first into the U.S. Bank Stadium turf, rolls over and is on his knees. That is a gain of 9, and it'll be 4th down for the Vikings and about 4 once they tend to feel him. All right.
How you doing, Kirk, at AT-19 like that?
2026 adversarial intel. The Minnesota Vikings get the NFC North, the NFC South, the AFC East, and Indy, Washington, and San Francisco. Once again, Lions Vox Dan Miller joins next segment. That should be about 10, 12 minutes from now. So here's partially what's noteworthy. With all those guys to this point of the 2026 season equation, or so says 9 to noon, talking about the teams on the schedule for next year. The Green Bay Packers traded Rashawn Gary to Dallas, re-upped with center Sean Ryan, will get Micah back around Halloween, at least that's what the Combine's team indicated. They cut Elton Jenkins. He plays center, and we used to love him. He missed weeks 11 to 18 last year with what's noted as a leg. And when I wrote this last night, that we need intel post-haste on Elton Jenkins.
Yeah.
And exactly how bad the leg was. From the internet machine, last year, Green Bay Packers offensive lineman Elton Jenkins suffered a season-ending broken fibula and associated ankle ligament damage during the team's Week 10 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles in November of 2025. Placed on IR, required surgery. Following this, Green Bay decided to release him, and that took place within the last couple of days. Doesn't sound like a great leg situation for Elton Jenkins. May God be with him in his covenant. Chicago, DJ Moore, gone. Center Drew Dahlman, gone. Bradbury, in. Linebacker Devin Bush, in. Champion safety Kobe Bryant, in. Super strong defensive tackle Neville Gallimore, in. Case Keenum, back. Good for Case. Beloved BJ, all about bolstering that defense and making sure the quarterback gets a smart, tough, competent center. I like that Bradbury move for them, and I like their moves overall so far.
Did you mention Kobe Bryant?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. How about
champion safety Kobe Bryant, in? No,
they're making nice moves. PA
Detroit, their Vox Dan Miller. When we're done with early 26 intel for the teams on the Viking schedule this year, that's around the corner. NFC South, New Orleans, Ryan Wright. Ryan Wright, our punter, is a saint. They also nabbed Jacksonville running back Travis Etienne and tight end Noah Fant. Noah Fant. What did P.T. Barnum say again? Tampa Bay will be without the great Mike Evans for the first time in a decade and change. Evans now is with the Niners, who also are on the Viking schedule. The Buccaneers also housed Alex Anzalone from the Kitties and running back Kenneth Gainwell from Pittsburgh. The Buccaneers have Kenneth Gainwell.
Oh my gosh.
Kenneth Gainwell. Thought he might be one of our guys.
Yeah.
Carolina got pass rusher Jalen Phillips from the Eagles to go with DJ Wanham and Patrick Jones. And also signed Caleb Evans to a 1-year ditty.
I always love that one.
Caleb Evans, Carolina. Rounding out the NFC South, a division the Vikings play next year. This season, Atlanta swooped in and snagged Tua like they already know how the 2026 season has played out. Holy cow, Kevin Calm, that was fast. It has to be the southpaw bit, right? And I'm being serious with this. Tua and Penix both throw left-handed. We all know that. What in the heck does Kevin Stefanski have up his sleeve? And is this the first time in the history of the NFL a team has a 1-2 quarterback bit with both lefties? I can't say I've ever heard of it. But Tua, till you're satisfied, whatever it is, Penix by his side. AFC East, all on the Viking schedule. The Pats, AFC champs, Drake May. They paid a fair give, so to speak, for Ravens defensive end Draymond Jones, but nothing else big. Elijah Vera Tucker. They crushed free agency last year and got to the Super Bowl because of it. The Jets got DeMario Davis after like a quarter century of high-end play for the New Orleans Saints. Seems like that's well-timed, given he's almost 40. They grabbed Kingsley Enagbari from the Packers, and he's a quality player, and traded for corner Minkah Fitzpatrick. They traded for corner Minkah Fitzpatrick, did the Jets. What did P.T. Barnum say again?
I always love that one.
The Bills cut Diggsy, retained that good center McGovern, and signed D. Alford, who's a middling corner at best. Miami cut Tua, replaced him with Malik Willis with a risky but potentially rewards-rich deal with a coach who loves him, as I learned yesterday. Happily loves him. And they cut their fullback and kicker, Jason Sanders. We're happy for Sanders and those of his ilk. The Niners, Mike Evans is in the covenant. Mac Jones is still on the roster. And Warren from St. Paul's guy, offensive tackle Verdarian Lowe.
I always love that one.
Got 2 and 12 from Next Level Shanny. And that's about it with those guys. Indianapolis, who wants to cover Alec Pierce and all that cash? Who wants to cover Alec Pierce and all that cash? All that cash. They made a middling trade for a defensive tackle with Green Bay, and they traded wide receiver Michael Pittman. Why? Because they love their tight end Tyler Warren so much he can now run the Pittman routes, middle of the field. Washington on the schedule. The Commanders wanted Marcus Mariota back and got him. They snagged pass rusher Odafe Owe from the LA Chargers. And now Justin Jefferson and Amik Robertson get to resume their deeply rooted Louisiana-based rivalry with the corner wearing burgundy and gold and not Honolulu blue. There's a lot more, but for the purpose of those on the Minnesota Vikings schedule and or us, that still was a lot. There was so much yesterday. And Kevin Calm, beloved Stefanski, has 2 left-handed quarterbacks. Who knew? What do you think?
The way that everybody is getting loose, and specifically the Tua and Penix bit, I think it's just the South.
It makes me laugh.
It is funny. I think that Kevin Stefanski, right out of the gates, I don't know how much pull he has, him sitting in a room, Matt Ryan now from an executive standpoint. How much is Stefanski begging for competent quarterback play? Just think about where he came from and everything he had to deal with, and how the whole Deshaun Watson thing worked out. He had like 4 or 5 quarterbacks on his roster at one point last year. He is begging for competent quarterback play. So from my standpoint, I think it just makes sense that they were going to pounce on something as quickly as humanly possible. The financial savings that they're getting. I don't know if you've been following the Kirk bid. Kirk might be asking for more than the $10 million he's getting from the Falcons.
Wow.
Which in addition to, kind of the mindset that you've spoken of with him demanding, or anywhere he goes, he wants to be the starter. He wants to be QB1. The money combined with that, an interesting situation there for Kirk moving forward. But the savings they're going to get, they're both southpaws, so maybe that helps Stefanski from an offensive line standpoint and just kind of orchestrating the offense. That makes sense. The Raiders, or not the Raiders, excuse me, but the Niners in particular with what they're doing there with Mike Evans. Mm-hmm. Now he needs to stay healthy. Mm-hmm. He needs to stay healthy. And that hammy, watch out for that hamstring, Mike Evans.
And they got Mike Evans. That means they can't possibly need Juwan Jennings. Juwan Jennings. I mean, I guess I'll handle Pelissero, you handle Shefty.
Yeah.
And we'll just keep hitting F3 to refresh it to see who gets whom and why.
The only thing, the thing I'll say about day one, and it'll be interesting, I just saw Ben Gessling, he posted about 20 minutes ago, the Vikes have worked out a new deal with Andrew DePaula. So Andrew DePaula is still going to be our favorite long snapper.
All-pro long snapper, though.
The one thing, patience. And you were, Joe, Rob Brzezinski's got him right where he wants him.
Well, he has to. We don't have that much money, and it has to be calculated.
But part of this, I mean, look at what the Chiefs, we mentioned what the Raiders did yesterday. Look at what the Giants did yesterday. You're talking about the Jets, and they're going to be big game hunting over. Look at what the Titans did.
Yeah. The Saints.
These are really, really bad teams. These are really, really bad teams that have not drafted well and are trying to pick up the freaking pieces. And those are the teams that you're seeing getting some of those big names, some of the names that I wanted. Really wanted John Franklin Myers, made way more money than what we could afford anyway.
Same.
But the bad teams are feasting in free agency. Rob Brzezinski, he's got him right where he wants them. But, man, let's hit on those 4 picks in the top 100. Let's hit on those 4 picks in April, and let's roll, baby.
The Saints got our punter, and they're on our schedule. I mean, the Vikings can find a punter to do the job the way they want it done. The Alabama kid's holder, though.
You lucky suckers.
Holy cow. Like Nordo said, that's a sneaky talker. That's a sneaky talker as we move forward. Ryan Wright.
We'll spend an hour on it.
He's going to wear the fleur-de-lis.
He ain't heavy. He's a punter.
Dan Miller, Vox for the Detroit Lions. Next. All righty now, welcome back to the 9 to Noon radio show. And one of our very favorites, Dan Miller, play-by-play voice for the Detroit Lions. Nice enough to join 9 to Noon to chat about this frenzied time of the year. And Dan, how about all the action yesterday, Monday? And teams are already at it today, man. I don't know about you, but I put my phone down at 5:45 last night, and I'm like, I'm all done with this. I mean, I think it's called doom scrolling, and I'm like, if Kyler Murray becomes our new quarterback, I'm going to hear about it tomorrow. There just was so much action. Dan, the man on the fan, what'd you think?
I looked at what the Raiders did. I think Schefter sent it across last night, right around the time you checked out, and it was everybody they'd signed. And I went down the list, and I was just like, oh, my gosh, this is incredible. And, there's some recognizable names in there, and it's such a strange day just because, look, it's a day that's built on hope because every team hopes that the guy or guys that they sign will be the ones that can push them across the line and make them better. And it's like every trade deadline, every draft day, things like that. But I just think this day in particular, NFL free agency comes with a little bit more peril because so often guys do well in one system, but it doesn't mean it translates into another system.
Right.
And look, sometimes it works, but to me, this has to be fine-tuning. This has to be you're filling in a guy for the last couple spots that you need to take care of something. But if this is the way that you try to build your team, and believe me, I'm in a city where they tried to do it for years. I'm just not a big fan of believing that works. I just think it's really tough. And as you said, the prices just seem a little bit crazy. And I just feel like so often we see a couple of years after a guy's signed, they're like, well, we can't deal with this contract anymore.
Yeah, like a couple of years ago for the Vikings, they make the moves for Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel, and those moves worked. I mean, and there were more that worked. Yep. You know, last year it wasn't as bountiful here. Then you think about the New England Patriots last year, man, with Milton Williams and a bunch of freebies they brought in. I mean, they hit on a bunch of them, got to the Super Bowl. It's kind of been crickets around New England so far, you know, because you just can't do that every year. And, you know, the bad teams in the league, the teams that are really trying to get above 4, 5, 6 wins year after year, they seem to have the most money, and it's not even close. And it's almost like the way they spend it to get better. It's almost to show the fan base, hey, we got $100 million under the cap here. We're just going to spend it all so that fans can be happy they're spending their money, you know?
Yeah, and you can win March, but it doesn't mean that you're going to win a lot in September. And
right.
I think sometimes this time of year, beauty is in the availability. And these are not guys that you normally might spend the kind of money on that we're seeing being spent now. And again, look, some of these moves are going to work out and they're going to be great. I just, you know, some of the money that was out there yesterday, I don't get. I know teams are trying to fill holes, but I don't know if this is the way you build a sustainable winner. But look, you said it. I mean, when you guys signed those 2 edge rushers, I mean, those guys had impact. And I looked at it and I said, man, that'd be great to have something like that. But I definitely am somebody who's soured a little bit on this. But your example with the Patriots is a great one because that was a big part of what they did. And I like what the Rams have done. I mean, normally you might look at spending money on cornerbacks like that and say, man, I don't know about that. But look, they got 1 year.
Yep. If
Stafford's going to play 1 more year, then you probably have 1 more year to get this done. So I would push all my chips to the middle of the table if I was the Rams too, and then figure it out after next season, whatever happens.
Yeah, I like how you put it with you can win March, but it doesn't mean you're going to win September through early February. There's a great play-by-play voice in the NFL who a few years ago said, if you want to change the conversation, win some games. And that's what these teams are hoping is going to happen with this flurry of free agency and all the money spent for guys who just they've done well, but they just haven't done a lot consistently for many years. Hey, have you met your new offensive coordinator Drew Petzing yet? You're going to absolutely love him.
I have not. I am looking forward to it. I know some folks have. I was not at the Combine, so I didn't get a chance to spend some time with them, but I'm looking forward to it. And, I'm excited about what he and Kafka both can bring.
Yeah.
And, look, there's obviously some changes with this team. And, I will say this, despite everything that we just said, the Lions do have some work to do in free agency, and they're going to still need to bring some veterans in. You have to hope that it's price meeting, what this player can ultimately do for your team, but there's a lot of holes in this roster right now. But back to your original point, I have heard good things about the way that he's presented himself and the ideas that he has, and obviously he and Dan Campbell clicked very quickly together. So
right.
It's an important hire. This offense was really good in terms of putting up points last year, but it wasn't the same offense that we had seen the couple of years before that. And look, not all of that certainly was John Morton. There was offensive line issues, which were significant. But it's all got to come back together if they want to get back to where they were and be a contender the way they were the previous couple of years.
Yeah, Mike Kafka, the passing game coordinator, Petzing, the offensive coordinator, and Drew was here when Kevin Stefanski was here. I think he might have been here with Hank Fraley too, the offensive line coach for the Lions. Somebody I absolutely adore. Petzing, incredibly smart. He went to a small school on the East Coast called Middlebury College. He's just he has a mathematician mind. He's a limb from the Norv Turner tree, which means the running schemes and Drew always was well known for the way he thinks out running game and things like that. Then you complement that. Well, I mean, we got high end talent here. Good quarterback, Gibbs, Laporta, Amon-Ra, Jamison Williams, and so on. And then you put him in with Kafka. I think this sounds pretty good for you guys, man.
Well, it feels like the things that you just outlined were the things that jumped out to Dan Campbell. I think when he watched Arizona play, even before he thought about hiring him, and then when the two had a chance to get together, because this team has been built around its offensive line and built around the run game. And as much as you might love Amon-Ra and you might love Laporta and you might love J-Mo, and those guys are all terrific, they like to run the ball, and they like what that does for Jared Goff to set him up with the play action and to have the ability to control games. But part of that, even before you get to the coach, you've got to have the offensive line to do that. And for a couple of years, they had arguably the best offensive line in the league. And then you lose Ragnow, you lose Zeitler, guys start to go away. Taylor Decker starts to break down a little bit, and it's not the same. So you're putting a lot of things back together here and hoping that it can come together. And look, I think it's silly to think that you're going to emerge from this thing back to having the best offensive line in football. That's just not going to happen right now.
Right.
But it is the goal to come out of this thing with an offensive line that's got an ability at times to control the line of scrimmage and get back to running the football and get back to what Petsing and Campbell both like, which is play action passes, which then makes all those weapons on the outside even more effective.
Did the David Montgomery trade, Dan, to Houston, did it surprise you at all?
No, it was brewing last year. You could sense that David was not happy during the season, and there was nothing negative in his behavior or anything like that. But there were whispers out there that if this thing didn't kind of turn around and they didn't find a way to involve him more, that he was going to want to move on. And then they were kind of open about that after the season, where they said, look, we love David, but if David doesn't want to be here, then we will try to accommodate him on that. And it felt for a minute like maybe things had thawed and David was going to be okay with this, but I just don't think it ever did. And I think that he wanted to go someplace where he'd have more of an opportunity to carry the ball. And the problem here was, it was really easy to say, and believe me, it got said a lot, man, we need to use David Montgomery more. We need to get him on the field more. The problem is when you're using him more, you're using Gibbs less. And Gibbs is just one of the best players in this league, and a touchdown waiting to happen and taking the ball out of his hands is not a great idea. That said, there does have to be a balance, and they do have to go out and find a second running back now, because in this league, you can't have just one. You've got to have multiple guys that can carry the ball, because, they've figured out that guys are just more effective when you can do that. So, long way of saying it wasn't surprising. I don't love it. I don't think you get better trading a David Montgomery, but I understand that as he saw his role diminish to the point where he had career lows in touches and yards last year, he just wanted a better opportunity.
Elite point. So, I don't know, maybe it'll be all Jahmyr Gibbs all the time, or I don't know, maybe they love Sione Vaki in a way none of us fathomed. or maybe there's a free agent running back.
He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. I mean, they drafted him as a running back, but he hasn't. There's no way you can go into a season thinking he's going to be, in my opinion, your RB2, because he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. And I just think the way this thing is built now, PA, you got to have two of these. So I'm anticipating a veteran running back at some point. There was a couple that came off yesterday, like Algier, that I thought would have been a good fit. But we'll see what happens. Like I said, there's still a considerable amount of work that I think they have to do, just because they're lacking bodies right now here. And who knows? Today could be an active day. As things kind of settle down a little bit, and then they got 10 draft picks as it stands right now. We'll see where that goes as well.
Dan Miller, play-by-play voice for the Detroit Lions, 9 to noon, with Jahmyr Gibbs, and I'm a fan from afar, despite when he scores 4 or 5 touchdowns against the Vikings in a single game. He's just phenomenal. He never misses time, does he? I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, he's not super sturdy or big, but he's always available, right?
Well, and that's part of it, certainly. And if you look at him, his lower, he is just stacked in his legs.
Got it.
I mean, he is a really strong kid. And that's where I think he surprises some people with his ability to not just run around you or by you or juke you. He can run over you. And that said, I don't think at this point that he's proven that he's that guy that you want on 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2, whereas Montgomery was. So I think that's kind of a hole that's there as well. But look, Gibbs has been terrific. He is, I think, up there with the best running backs in this league. He is a guy that anytime the ball's in his hands, he's capable of going the distance and putting up a touchdown. And he's been part of what really was a historic tandem here. These guys did some things that hadn't been done before in terms of scoring touchdowns in the same game and consistency and working together and things like that. But it's right now, I think he's kind of Batman without a Robin, and we've been used to having Batman and Robin here working together. And I think as good as he is, I just find it, a little bit troubling right now that there's not somebody else there with him. But at the same time, it's really early. It's second week in March, and there will be, I'm convinced, another guy there that will play a significant role for this team before all is said and done.
Dan, you mentioned some members of the offensive line. Let's call it the Michigan Moving Company. Gone, reportedly, are going to be left tackle Taylor Decker, guard center Graham Glasgow released. Are they like, as long as we have Penei Sewell, we're going to be fine? And I know they brought in Carolina's Cade Mays. He's going to be in the mix. I'm not real familiar. So, I mean, we got Penei Sewell. That's about the best in show. And now we got Cade Mays, Larry Borum, Juice Scruggs from Houston in the Montgomery deal. It just seems from afar like the Ragnow retirement situation is still a work in progress over there.
Oh, it is. And I think you asked, is it just the belief that we're fine if we have Penei? And the answer is no. Mm-hmm. And they learned that last year. And you don't have to look any further than the two Vikings games. And, not having Frank Ragnow in the middle of that offensive line, diagnosing defenses, double A gap, whatever you want to call it, was a problem for this football team. And if you look back at what they had done, and I just think it's best exemplified by looking at what happened against the Vikings. If you look back at what they did in the 4 previous games against that defense, they had scored over 30 a game and won all 4 games. If you look at the 2 games last year, they had just a terrible time diagnosing and then dealing with everything that Minnesota does to you. And I think so much of that was Frank's ability before the snap, at the snap, after the snap, to make sure that everybody was in the right spot and communicating and dealing with all the things that they show you, and then expand that out to the other teams in the league who figure that out because they see it on tape. So center and getting somebody, I thought, because there was also talk maybe move Tate Ratledge over to center, which they tried for a couple days last year and then stopped. Yeah. I thought one of the most important things they had to do this offseason was to get somebody who's a veteran in this league, who has played in the middle of that offensive line, was a priority. And they did that. And if you look, I didn't watch every snap that Cade Mays had in Carolina. Book on him right now is really good as a pass blocker, not as good as a run blocker. I think the hope is one of the guys that you mentioned earlier, Hank Fraley, you put him in his hands, and you're going to maximize what he can be. But they still need to figure out, are they going to sign? I don't think Borum's a starter in my mind at this point. Right. I do think they'll add another tackle. If it is a right tackle through the draft or another veteran they sign, I think that you could see Penei over at left. Whoa. I think that's on the table. But I do think there will be another tackle of significance, whether it's a first-round pick or a high pick or something like that is brought in that will be your opening day starter. Maybe it's Borum if you're pushed into that position. Yeah. I don't believe that'll be the case. We'll have to wait and see. And keeping Ratledge at guard takes care of one side, and then we'll see if they're happy with the competition that they have at the other side with Mahogany, with Frazier, with Scruggs, and go from there. But they've got considerable work to do on that offensive line, and I think when all is said and done, there's a decent chance that you have 2 holdovers from last year in Ratledge and Penei, maybe 3 with one of those guards, but I think there will definitely be clearly be 2 new starters at a minimum with one of the tackles and the center.
Well, consider your former offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson. And I mean, yeah, he's super sharp, and he did wonderful, wonderful work with Chicago. We both can agree with that. But like Drew Dahlman retires, So they trade for Garrett Bradbury. All right. I mean, Garrett's not the biggest thing in the world, and he gets pushed around a little. But, I mean, you know this better than anybody, man. It was a terrific move for Caleb Williams due to the intangibles that go into that center-quarterback relationship. That's so important, the relationship between those two. And like you said about Ragnow, getting things set up. Bradbury's very good with that. So that was a good move by them. But do you think the Bears are sitting on even bigger and better next season?
That's a great question. And I think it's one that's going to be interesting to play out. And I think you can kind of throw New England in there as well in kind of my line of thinking. I mean, the Patriots, number one, had the easiest of schedules to get where they got. And the Bears, was it 7 or 8 games that they won in the final minute or two, which is great. But a lot of times those things don't last. And I think the Bears are good. We're going to find out if that good continues to move in an upwards trajectory. And a lot of that, obviously, is the development of the quarterback as well. And there were times where I looked at him and he looked spectacular. There's times that I look at him and for 3 quarters it looks like he can't make the easy passes, but he makes all the tough ones. So I'm intrigued by Chicago still. I think they're going to be a factor. I don't think they're going anywhere. I just don't know if we're going to see the kind of jump that you might expect from a team that made that move. Because the next thing you expect is, you know, you're banging on the door to get into a Super Bowl, and we'll see whether or not that happens. But it was a great year, and they've done some work changing some things around so far this year and signed some guys. And I'm glad Max Crosby didn't end up there, which I kept hearing he was going to. But we'll see what happens. It just sometimes I think when you have a year that feels like everything breaks your way, it's tough to duplicate that, which is what we saw with them last year with all those close victories. Full marks for doing it, but it's tough to sustain. Now you got to kind of take the next step where you're doing it for 4 quarters instead of figuring out a way to come back and win a game in the final 5 or 6 minutes.
Amen. Last 2 for Dan Miller, the Vox for the Detroit Lions. Alex Anzalone's become a Buck. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Loved Alex. Watched him kind of go from a player here that frustrated people because he missed a lot of tackles, which might have been a byproduct of not having much talent around him, to a fan favorite and a captain and a leader. But there just comes a point where teams have to weigh a player's age and a player's salary versus what that player thinks their salary should be. And if they can't meet, then they end up moving on. And that's what happened with Alex. And I purely think it was a salary thing, and that they have other places that they're going to have to spend money and maybe have to get a little bit cheaper there. But hate to see him go. Great dude. Tampa will love him. It's getting a little bit closer to home for him, which I'm sure he and his wife love. But again, it's a tough business in that regard. We see how much these rosters turn over, and a lot of times when they turn over, it's going to be guys that you know can still play and guys that you really like, and Alex certainly checks those boxes.
All right, last one. Amik Robertson has become a Commander, so I'm going to miss those Amik Robertson, Justin Jefferson matchups twice a year. They grew up with each other in Louisiana, and they've just had super tooth and nail battles all of their lives. He becomes a Commander. And last year around this time, lastly, I told you I love defensive tackle Roy Lopez that you guys got from Arizona. Not the greatest take formulated by me around here in the history of radio. And now he's back with the Cards. Maybe you guys are saving chips to sign Trey Hendrickson to roll with Aiden Hutchinson. How about that? What if that happens?
I will take it if it happens. It certainly would put a strain on some cap things, but you know what? Teams figure those things out. Look, love Amik, great locker room guy, one of the, most enjoyable interviews you'll have. He'll make you'll walk away from him breathing fire just because that's what he's doing. So I wish him well. I think he had to play out of position a lot here, which was difficult for him. There's still some, PA, to your point, there's still some things that have to happen. I mean, they need not just an edge to start opposite Aiden Hutchinson. they need an edge to back up those two. You still have basically at this point 2 linebackers under contract in Barnes and Jack Campbell, and you have questions at safety where both those guys finished last year hurt, and we still don't know what Kirby's knee looks like because there's so many rumors that this could be career threatening. And then there's some legal issues with Terry and Arnold, which are still kind of hanging out there right now. We don't know about, and you got Branch coming off Achilles tendon. I'm telling you, there's just a lack of bodies right now that at some point will be rectified. It's not a panic thing. It's just a fact. They've got some work they have to do to add some guys, whether it's a big swing like Hendrickson or something like that. That's the next question that'll be answered.
A gracious Dan the Man on the Fan, 2-decade play-by-play Vox for the Detroit Lions. Back to the local motion, the Scribe, Ben Gessling, who covers the Minnesota Vikings for the Star Tribune. He joins 9 to noon next.